I must admit it attracts an amazing amount of photographs. Like when you're driving along, you know, people are so looking and waving, you know. So they say you get so many smiles per gallon rather much. So, I actually inherited it. Luckily, my wife's cousin owned it for about 10 years, and he died, and his family didn't want to sell it, but they couldn't keep it. And they came along to me and said, look, you know, would you like to take it from us? So I took it. He was not mechanically minded at all, Michael, the guy who owned it. And unfortunately, it fell into disrepair insofar as that he had a number of mechanics who hadn't a clue what they were doing, you know. And they made a mess of the whole thing, you know. So when I got it then, I started to work on it. And now I don't work on it very much anymore because I've got too decrepit. There's very little to do on it, yeah. Now, it is expensive if you have to have something done, but I found myself an absolutely excellent mechanic who knows what he's about. And if there's anything major to be done to it, I give it to Robert, and he sorts it out for me, you know, and he really is good. You would change plugs or something like that, but that is not an easy job, you know. I mean, I'll let you see the engine if you want to, and it's an animal, you know. I've had it, I think, about 11 years now. Yeah, I've had it about 11 years. It was originally UK. The guy who owned it didn't have it for that long, the original owner. But again, like if you buy a new Rolls-Royce, so you have the money to be able to change or whatever, you know. So he sold it on. It did very little mileage on it, and a guy from Belfast bought it, a guy called Healy. And Healy was an undertaker in Belfast, yeah, and I'm not going to say anything more about that. It was Healy's own car. It was a two-tone car. It was a pewter grey and a greeny colour. Very, very nice, lovely looking car. Poor Michael. Michael had a bit of a row with his wife one night, and she scored the whole side of it with the key, you know. So he had to have it resprayed, and had it resprayed that colour there. I will admit, it's not, I wouldn't consider it a super spray job, but that's neither here nor there. When Michael got the car, he bought it in Belfast. I went up to see him because there was only 19,000 miles on it when Michael bought it. And like that is, well, it's 20 years ago now, but it was a 20-year-old car at that stage, you know, yeah, more. When I went along to Healy, he said, yeah, I didn't do very much mileage in it at all. He said, that was genuine, the 19,000 was genuine for sure. And I have all the records of it anyway. But he said, sure, look, he said, I bought that one 10 years ago, and he shows me this gorgeous new roller, but it was 10 years old. And he said, take a look at the mileage of it. 10 years old, it had 1,800 miles on it. That was all. Yeah, he said he didn't use it very much at all. He was quite disappointed in it, insofar as that he only realised afterwards it was a BMW engine that was in it, not a Rolls-Royce engine. And that knocked him a bit. Then fell into my hands at that stage of the game, as I say, about 11 years ago. They knew I was mechanically minded, you know, so I would have no problem with it. Still, if they wanted it for any reason, I would just give them a loan of it, but they very rarely. There've been a couple of weddings and that kind of things. I don't do weddings or anything like that. That has been very reliable, but in general, they're not reliable, you know, and they can just sort of stop on a whim. There was one problem with them, and that was the points, the contact points. When you stopped at the traffic lights, they seemed to get jammed and the car cut out, and it just wouldn't start again because the points wouldn't open or close for some reason or another. So I put electronic ignition in it, and of course that corrected that straight away. But like when Michael had it, he would have it towed in 2 or 3 times a year, you know, sort of because of this, you know. Well, I didn't realise it at that time. Well, he wouldn't let me do an awful lot with it. That was it. He wouldn't. He wouldn't admit that he didn't know enough about them. To be quite honest with you, that was probably the size of it. And again, I wouldn't have known anything about it until I got it, you know. And then, like, I learned an awful lot more. Well, I read up a huge amount on it. Well, I didn't learn everything, and I haven't learned everything. Good Lord, no. Oh, there would still be a lot to learn, yeah. I mean, what have I done with it? I'm just thinking of the main things I've done. I've done the plugs, etc., on a number of occasions. I have done I put a new radiator in it. Water pump, I've done that, I think. The electrical side of it, you know, and the different bits and pieces on it that needed to be done. I had a job done on it there last year. It was rusting. There were pieces of it rusting around the wheel arches and that. And I got a guy in Baldoyle who, my next door neighbour, in fact, has exactly the same car as that. He is a Bentley of exactly the same age. And he had a job done. He bought pieces for that. You can buy the wheel arch pieces, and they cut them out. Like you can buy that there, okay, and you cut it out, and you have it welded in. The back ones were probably worse than the front, although that front one was done. But I brought it around to a guy in Baldoyle industrial estate, and I said, look, I'll get whatever bits you need. And he was a Polish guy, and he said, nah, don't need any bits. I could make these up myself, he said. And he did. He was really very, very good. His only problem was he was a lousy paint sprayer. But apart from that, I had a Mini Cooper as well. I had a 1970 Mini Cooper S. It was lovely, actually, but I brought it to a car show at one stage and I realised then that it's a bloody waste of time. You spend all afternoon sitting around scratching yourself.